everyone, and welcome to join our webinar today. I am really happy to see all of you coming in and joining us online today. What a great afternoon or morning coffee we are actually having here together. So I'm really happy to see there are so many people joining us already now. I am really privileged to have such a big group of professionals joining us from all around the world. And it's so nice to see people getting together around a really meaningful topic today. At least I am really inspired by the theme, the learning, social learning, building learning programs, and actually doing that at scale in a global environment. So thank you everyone so much already now for taking your time, for introducing yourself, for joining our pre-work, and also helping us to make and create us a successful event and webinar for today. I am Hanna Liimatainen, and I work at Housespace as a global head of customer success. And we here at Housespace, we're helping organizations to renew their ways of working, to create new ways for learning, change, transformation, organizational development, strategy work, and to use all of the competencies and all of the brain power that we have in the organization to actually thrive, to achieve our goals, and also to navigate in the environment that is actually changing around us. And today, I am really happy to have one of our Housespace customers joining me on stage. And I have already promised, at least somewhere in my social media channels, that there is today 100% guarantee for inspiration. And Melanie, you are actually joining me and also helping me to make that happen today. So let me introduce you to Melanie Calle. Melanie, welcome to join me on stage and joining me today. Would you please share a bit about yourself and your background and introduce yourself to the group?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, thank you for having me. I always enjoy, going to those webinars myself and learning from people in the industry, people that are having the same challenges or questions that I have when I am thinking about learning and how to introduce things in our organization. So I've been in HR for, probably over 15 years. I've done different roles within HR, so from recruitment, HR business partnering into learning and development. So I've been in this role for 5 years with Kontoor Brands, and it's been a hell of a journey, I would say, in our company. This topic is definitely something that kept me busy for the past, I would say, 3 years. Really looking at leadership development in our company. So looking forward to the webinar today.
Wow, thank you so much, and thank you for sharing. I can already feel that there are really like-minded people in this group, and people are really eager to hear your story and hear this actual case of how you have been developing your ways for developing the leadership and the leadership training globally. So today we're here to talk about the big theme of scaling leadership training through collaborative learning. And Melanie, you have been, as you said, you have been building the leadership training program at Kontoor Brands. And today we will actually hear more about your program, about your goals, and what was actually the starting point. Why did you start with planning such a big initiative and training for your whole leadership team? But we are actually also having a showcase into your workspace, and we can actually really see how you have made the successful learning process happen. So this is kind of also some inspiration for the people online today that we will also get into having a glance on that actual way of working. But before we start, as I said there in the beginning, Melanie, we are having a big group of learning and leadership training professionals online today. And as we discussed, we are really happy that you already joined us on the pre-work. There were many of you joining the conversations in House Space. Many of you introduced yourself already and also participated in the short dialogue that we were inviting you. So maybe I will take us for a short moment into that House Space workspace. And what is actually behind my thoughts today is that we also want to give you a tiny experience or a small glance on what does it actually mean to create this kind of a learning experience. So we can already now discuss about the learning experience and making this kind of a one-off workshop or webinar a learning program. When we invite some of the participants to do some pre-work that we use to plan for a better content for the actual webinar workshop, and then there is some pre like after work coming there in the end and after this webinar. So I also want every one of you to get that type of a House Space experience with you. So as said, me and Melanie, we were introducing ourselves on the workspace, and so did many of you. But we also had the question of an invitation for all of you to think about leadership training in your own organization and what's already working well and where do you see the biggest opportunity for improvement. And I am really, really happy to see many answers here, and many of you have already shared really good insights from your organizations, and there is still room for more. So if you are there now just recognizing that I haven't answered on the question yet, please just join us on the welcome page here on the House Space workspace. But to just give us some food for thought, Melanie, for our session today, I was just thinking that I will take a bit of a closer look on the actual content and what did our participants answer today on our pre-work question. And my question today is that what are the most important things we need to learn to drive better leadership training? That is my question. I will now use AI prompting and see what does our participant group discuss about that topic. So what are the most important things we need to learn to drive better leadership training? So key learnings from this group is we need to facilitate digitalization and collaborative online learning spaces to enhance accessibility and engagement. We need to implement practical strategies for leaders to test and change habits, foster ongoing knowledge sharing among leaders, really a big theme as well. Position leadership training as essential, integrating it into current job challenges. And number 5, provide tools to create and maintain networks that support long-term knowledge building among leaders. I will paste this as a comment on the page so that we can also get back to that afterwards. But Melanie, quite a big themes and really, really meaningful things that we actually our participants are now saying that we need to learn. And I think that at least almost all of these themes are something that we will touch upon today with you as well.
Yes, exactly. I think the first one, right? The digitalization. Oh, absolutely. That's also something that we were thinking of, like, how do we, use different tools to create better experiences online? Yeah. So I'll definitely touch upon that.
Oh, yes. Sounds perfect. Thank you so much for all of you online. And now I think that we are all eager to get into hearing more of the Kontoor Brands. So Melanie, would you lead us through your case shortly and describe a bit better that what is Kontoor Brands, what was actually your starting point to the learning process, and what have you been up to with your leaders community?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So for those that don't necessarily know Kontoor Brands as a company, we are a global lifestyle and apparel company, and we have, I would say, two very big iconic brands, which are called Lee and Wrangler, so our denim brands. But actually, recently, I mean, just like 2 weeks ago, we acquired Helly Hansen, which we are extremely excited about. I think what these three brands have in common is a very rich history. They are very heritage brands, and that's what we love because we also love the storytelling, you know, and the experiences again, right, that people have wearing our brands. So we have around 15,000 employees worldwide. We are in over 50 countries, and our main offices, so headquarters globally, is in North Carolina, in Greensboro, and that really is like a denim, I would say, county there. It lives and breathes our brands. And then in Europe, we are actually having our head office in Geneva, Switzerland, and then in Asia, we have our headquarters in Hong Kong. So those are our biggest hubs, I would say. But we design our clothes. We manufacture our clothes, you know. So we've got big manufacturing facilities in Latin America, and we also distribute everything ourselves. And I would say, yeah, what makes our company a little bit unique to us is the passion. You know, like there's a lot of passion in every employee, I would say. But also, you know, we want to make products that our people, you know, that are going to wear our clothes, that they feel confident. Because sometimes, you know, the way that you're being dressed does, you know, make you feel more confident. And that's also, I think, what clothes sometimes can do for people. And yeah, I'm very proud to be working for Kontoor Brands. Although we are a big company, a global company, we are also a little bit of a startup, because Kontoor Brands only was born in 2019. So, I mean, that's 5-6 years. And so we kind of use that entrepreneurial spirit that sometimes, you know, a startup can have, to look at all of our processes and the way that we work and the experiences that we bring to employees. Yeah, we kind of use that startup mentality, but still have that backbone of very foundational brands that we can lean on, right? We've got this supply chain that we have for many years already, that is there. We can rely on it. But then, yeah, still use a little bit that mentality of entrepreneurial spirit. So that's kind of neat, because we were part of VF Corporation, and maybe many people know VF Corporation. It's a very big company with a lot of brands. And so in 2019, Lee and Wrangler were spun off from VF Corporation, and they started their own company, publicly traded company, which is then called Kontoor Brands. So that's a little bit of us and who we are. And we are looking very much forward to a future with now also Helly Hansen, which is like a powerful outdoor brand that probably many of you know. So yeah, going into the why. Why do we need leadership development programs for people? I think for us in the company, it is part of our core curriculum. Everybody in the company needs to go through the core curriculum. And so for leaders, when they start the company or when they are just recently promoted into a leadership role, for us, it is important that they get these essential, you know, the foundational skills, because they always say, you know, people join a company, but sometimes they actually leave managers, right? So the impact that a leader has is tremendous. If you have a good leader, yeah, the people flourish, you know, their development is happening. And so we want actually all of our leaders to be best in class, already on that essential basic foundational layer. And this is where we said, okay, we need a strong program that is scalable, right? Because we've got many leaders worldwide. And so how do we do that? Because we really want to make sure that there's also this experiential learning in there, that it feels something that is not, and I think I mentioned it in my intro, it doesn't feel like a one size fits all and, tick the box and done. Because we don't see that will bring the impact that we want. But we want it to be, yes, we've got these concepts, right? Theory that people can rely on. And often we only use like 3 main concepts in our theory portion of the program. But then we want to really make sure that people reflect on it, that people look at what does that mean now for me and my role in my team. Maybe I have remote people, maybe I have 10 people, maybe I've just one. That all these things are different, and people come into your organization sometimes with already some knowledge on being a leader, and some don't, right? So again, how do you make sure that it is beneficial for all these different leaders that are joining your company in different cultures, different environments? If you think about manufacturing, and if you think about office-based people, totally different again, right? So that was definitely our question. How are we going to bring foundational leadership skills to all of our leaders at Kontoor? Doesn't matter where they necessarily are, right? And then, of course, as I already mentioned, we wanted to overcome those geographical barriers. We love in-person training, don't get me wrong, but how do we mirror the in-person experience as much as possible, but doing it virtually so that we can actually reach all those people without having to travel, to each of those locations? Because even in Asia, we have colleagues in learning and development that could deliver these trainings, but still within Asia, we've got all these different facilities. It would still be a heavy travel costs. And same in Europe, right? So that's, I think, where we also looked at what could be a solution for us to actually overcome those geographical barriers. And then, the connection piece. I strongly believe that what you're learning from a peer often resonates 10 times more than if you're learning it, or than if you're learning something from a teacher that is in front of you and basically gives a lot of theory, but maybe is not necessarily in the same situation that you are in, and your peer is, right? So they do understand those situations much better, and that connection piece is so important, because if you have then a question, and if you can connect leaders and build a little bit of a community, right, leaders among leaders, then they can reach out on other topics related to their leadership role, next to what we've covered in the training, right? So that networking piece, that connection piece is super important for us when we're looking at any of our leadership development programs. But we want to create this little community within the company. So we did that through our LMS in the past. So we use Workday in Kontoor Brands, and our LMS is we're still learning. It's not built to be an LMS Workday, so we are trying to constantly ask things where the program isn't necessary, or the system isn't necessarily built for, right? So sometimes we overcomplicate things, or we're asking for things, and then ultimately we find out, if we do this, then that doesn't work anymore, So that was really a struggle for us, using the systems that we have, but in an optimal way, and that it also still generates these experiences that we wanted to have. So we've done a lot of trainings where we recorded a webinar. It's not the same thing than if you really go through it and you're able to respond, and you're able to ask questions, and you're able to talk to people, in a virtual breakout room. If you're not there, then the recording, Yeah, it's not really the best experience for us. So, but that was the thing that we had, right? If we have all these different time zones, so if we were organizing it, often, yeah, the people that were not in that time zone, they needed to watch the recording. So that was something we knew from the start, like, okay, we need to find a solution to generate a better outcome. And so I looked at certain things that we could be doing, and I followed a webinar from Housebase, and it was the first time that I actually felt like, ooh, not even with my camera on, I can actually say something, and I can, see how other people react, and then you can bring this together, and then you can have another question, and all these functionalities. It felt so engaging. There was not a minute that I wanted to, just be like this and follow the webinar, but I wanted to participate. And that's the feeling that I wanted to create as well with our programs. Yeah, so I think, as I already mentioned here on the slides, we did training through Workday. We assigned videos to make it as I would say engaging as possible. But still, it's a one-way street. We did then a 90-minute virtual workshop. Again, right? We had the obstacle that it needed to fit as most time zones as possible. But for people in APAC, it's always late. It's always there 8 o'clock in the evening, and then you can wonder how much brain quality is still there to actually consume and participate, and their family lives are in the back, so not that easy, I think, for people in APAC. So wasn't the best thing. Now I think using Housebase, we still have theory, right? Content, those concepts that we want to bring along, but we have more than the videos, right? We use podcasts, or we use a YouTube video, or, and those reflection questions to constantly reflect on, what am I learning here? How am I going to use that going forward? Or how am I actually doing about this specific thing? Am I doing a good job here, or is there an opportunity to do more? So learn from those discussions from other people. So all of these things we were able to incorporate. The language is definitely for us extremely important. What we've done previously is basically we made those videos, and which are like 20-minute videos each module, so 5 modules, 20-minute videos. We've made them in different languages, so in Spanish, in Chinese, and that was very time consuming, and a lot of people involved, right? Because somebody needs to review, have I done it the right way? Somebody needs to lend their voice if you want to do an audio. So that was really, I think, time consuming. And then if you can see what Housebase can do with just putting the language in your own native language and just translate already a lot of the content like that. That was amazing for us. It was such a time saver, but also, again, it creates a better experience for the people that are actually participating, that they have this option to just do it in their own language. We've sent reminders or communication through Workday, which is extremely dry, not engaging, and sometimes people just completely missed it in their inbox. So also there, Housebase gives us a little bit more opportunities to actually make things way more engaging, use some icons, use some coloring, short messages, easy way to look at who has done it already, who hasn't, who do we need to bring on track. So that was also definitely something that we've loved seeing from Housebase there. And then, as I said already, no interaction with the facilitators. What we really love with the leadership programs is, although that the foundational skills that we're teaching is the same, because of the comments that people bring into the discussions on the platform, we can see where they actually have another need, right? And I think in the last program that we ran from August till November, we saw coming back that a lot of people were saying, I struggle with delegating. How do I start? What do I delegate? Sometimes it feels it's easier to do it myself before I need to explain, and so on and so on. And there we said, okay, great, right? We see this coming back. Let's give them an additional resource, because it wasn't necessarily part of our initial program. But yeah, that was something that we felt was really strong, that we could immediately on the spot, every cohort, we call it, could have a different need rising, and we can anticipate on it, and we can give additional resources. So that's also super cool to do. And we get that interaction, right? We bring in a comment, they come back to us, they like it, like you can feel that we've already built a connection as well as a facilitator, which we were never able to do before. So yeah, I think those were the main things that I wanted to say. I think when we did our workshops previously through Teams, and with the chat function, that was the only thing that we were able to do. Then sometimes if you ask a question, right, then you hear crickets. And that's, I think the best way that we add value as a facilitator is when we have that interaction with our audience. That's when we thrive, and that's where we can add value, and that's where we can make it meaningful for our participants. And coming off mute, barrier number one, right? So yeah, if you hear crickets, it's uncomfortable for everyone. And so this is also, again, something where HowSpace really adds value, because the barrier is so low to participate that people feel excited to participate.
Wow. What a story. And I really love your way of getting people to reflect the content that you are actually sharing, because there is still quite a lot of content in some points, but people are reflecting on it, and they are also starting to learn from the peers, learn from each others, and they also get the courage to say that, hey, this is something that I am struggling with. This is something that I would need some more help with. And then there are actually those facilitators helping and supporting and kind of guiding all of the participants forward on the way. Melanie, you all maybe shared quite the many parts from this already, like what is the HowSpace's value for your processes, but is there still something that you would like to highlight?
Yeah, I think now going back to some of the comments that were already mentioned, right, in the beginnings, I think Christian mentioned, right, the biggest opportunity is digitalization, facilitating collaborative learnings online. Yeah, that's exactly where we also started from, right? I already shared a little bit in my story. We wanted to use different tools that could help us really facilitate. And yeah, that's, I think, the value of HowSpace definitely brings that. That peer-to-peer learning, I think Caroline mentioned something around often leaders feel alone with their challenge. And here, by seeing the comments, by having people reflect on certain questions, like what do you do, right, to tackle A or B, then they see that they're not alone. And they can start also interjecting, like, this is what I've tried, and hey, actually it worked for me, maybe it could work for you. And that's where we saw people commenting on each other, on each other's comments. So, and you always have, at least in our programs, we always have leaders that are less experienced than leaders that are more experienced. And we always, you kind of need to see that as a facilitator and nudge them, saying like, hey, it seems like you've done some great things already. Why don't you share your experience? And people love to share. They want to help. As nature, we want to we want others also to be successful, right? And we want to share our stories, and so we kind of try to also see those elements where we can inject that peer-to-peer learning, because I strongly believe in the value of learning from a peer. That was also something that totally resonated for me when I saw the comments. Yeah, exactly. A lot of people, leaders do feel alone, and they are looking for, who else has this challenge, and what can I do, and what can I try?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Melanie, I must say that I admire how you have actually been able to build that atmosphere and build that place for all of the leaders to actually be open and be brave and share their challenges and the patterns that they're having, but also to get that visible, that like every leader also wants to be seen and wants to be heard, and also, as you said, that they want to share their success stories and maybe the challenges as well. So I think that's really, really valuable that you have been able to create that atmosphere where it's also safe for everyone to share their stories. Melanie, we are also having quite a big group of participants with us today. So I was thinking that maybe we take, as you are now here sharing the value of house space, but I feel that these are also like really core elements and like values for your leadership development as well. That what kind of learning do we want to offer? What is a successful learning experience in our organization? So I think that these are like quite big cultural values as well. So I was just wondering that if we take, before we jump into the next steps and take a look at the workspace as well, if we take a short like engaging part. So if we add here below our screen on house space, one prioritization widget, as we call it, and we do a short practice with every one of you. So now we are asking you to look at the house space page and scroll down below the screen where you are seeing our faces. And there are now those values added on the page. So the question is, what are the most important things in your organization when planning and creating successful learning programs? So think about your own organization, and from your own organization's perspective, what are the most important things in your organization when planning or creating these learning programs? And how you can actually prioritize is to scroll all of those, looking at the arrows, and then like taking those into different order, so that the number one, the most important theme, is there on top. So please prioritize those 8 themes into the order. What do you feel the most valuable and important? And after you are ready, click submit answer. There is also place for some additional comment in written. Now we, Melanie, need to keep silent for a short moment and get people some time to answer. At least for me, this is the most challenging part. Now we can see these results coming in. Maybe we could get that also visible on our screen. Yes. Melanie, what does it look? Experience sharing and dialogue being there on top, networking and collaboration, then flexible participation, asynchronous and synchronous work. You were talking about that theme also quite a lot. Also the scalability of learning services. I think that you also mentioned that it's important that we don't need as many people to train the people, and it's easy to start with a new process effectively. Then cost efficiency, AI-driven insights, the analytics and data, and multilingual communications. Any surprises for you, Melanie?
No, I think a lot of things mentioned here are basically, you kind of want to check all the boxes, right? You do want to be able to measure the impact. You want it to be cost effective, and I think there's plenty of ways that we can start measuring the impact. It doesn't happen right after, you deliver a program. You do need to allow them some time to actually start developing those different habits or really skill building. But I think my CHRO would definitely agree with the experience sharing and dialogue. I think that was his main call out. Like, Melanie, our leadership programs, they need to be experiential. You need to bring in the experiences, because that's what we want to spend our time also on, and not, okay, here is the content, you go through it yourself and that's it, right? We've done, as I said, like the check the box, that people are not going to learn, and that therefore the hour that they spend is never going to really be the return on investment. So
yeah. Thank you so much, and thank you for all the participants. Me and Melanie, we promised to also be there online and answer on those questions afterwards. Now there are like some in written answers also coming in, so let's get back to those later. But Melanie, what do you think, if we should now just take a short look at your process? How did you actually develop the training or the course for your leadership people? And then if we just jump into the workspace and take a closer look at that. Perfect.
Works
so I would say one more slide, and then we will head into the workspace.
So this is our program overview. This is what we share with managers of participants, but also with the participants. And this is our program for frontline leaders, right? New to role or new to leadership. We have a similar program overview for director level program. There, the group is way smaller, right? We have around 25 participants in our director program each time that we run it, because there we do have one element where they come together 4 days in our head office in Greensboro. So that's a little bit different, but it builds upon exactly this program. So we go it and we take it next level, and that's why it's our core curriculum. So we always start with an orientation meeting, because we want people to not just share on HowSpace, like here is the link and go explore, but really bring them along. What is HowSpace? How are we using it? What can you find it? How will you get most benefit out of it? And this is where I really learned to talk to the participants. What's in it for you, right? Why would you want to invest your time in it? Because it is a time investment, right? We run it for 3 months. We give them as much time as possible so that they can consume content on their own time and then have workshops in between. So it is gradually, we constantly take them along. We don't just share all the content and all the modules from the start, but really gradually take them along. And I would say that with that, we also really involve the manager of the participant, because in our organization, and that might be relevant for other organizations as well, if we look at our engagement survey results, we see that the interaction and the relationship with the manager is extremely high in terms of effectiveness in our organization. So that feels like a strength for us that we want to leverage also in these programs, right? Because if a manager is saying, please allocate the time, you're going to learn something, this is important, people are going to do it. And that's what we want. So we have an orientation meeting first with the manager of the participants to walk them through, and we clearly explain the expectations that we have from them. We also tell them that we will nudge them from time to time to say, this is where they are in the program. This is what they've learned. Here are 2 questions in your next one-to-one that could be interesting, right? For you to ask your employee to understand what they're learning. So they're quite involved. I mean, we drag them in, right? So that's what we do for the manager of the participants. For the participants, we start with the orientation meeting. We already add in a question on house space so that they get familiar with how do you share a comment, exactly a little bit like what you just did with our audience today. And then we go into, so you can see on the screen, all the blue boxes are virtual sessions, workshops, or where we meet each other virtually on HouseSpace. And then I would say the white boxes, that's where they do their self-learning, right? Self-guided learning on the HouseSpace platform with content that is made available for them, specifically around one topic, right? So that's how we bring them along gradually. And then what is extremely important for us as well is that we've got in the beginning, we ask them to write their development plan. We ask them to write a goal on what is it that you want to achieve from the time that we will be spending together. So based on this overview, based on what we're going to teach you, what is it that you really want to get out of it? And so put that in your development goal. And we have a session around how do you write a good development goal. And we don't want them specifically to take like 10 things out of it, but just focus already on one thing. And we want them that one goal is also added to their performance management, so their development planning within the first year that they are at Kontoor, right? So that's a little bit like the process behind the program.
Yeah.
How we try to link everything, right? Because we don't want them to have a development plan in the system because it's part of the process of performance management, but it should be meaningful and they should get the tools to actually action upon their development plan. So that's a little bit what we have in our program.
Yeah, that's really a nice illustration, and also describes well how the platform has then been developed. So I think that this is kind of just an idea and just some illustration for everyone to kind of have this view when we take a look at the platform. But Melanie, do you think that this would be now the time to jump into an actual HouseSpace workspace, which is now a real example? So I'll just let everyone know that this is now your Kontoor Brands, one of those essential leadership training groups that has gone through this path, but we have deleted the participants so that the content is there, but we can't see the names now.
Yeah.
So
I think only in the
content. Yes.
Yeah. Correct. I think only in the pinning you will still see some faces, but the actual comments, indeed, we removed the names because I think someone said it already. The psychological safety is important, right? We wouldn't want if you're sharing your experience or your struggles, you do explain or display some vulnerability, and of course we want to protect that for participants. So all good, you can see my screen?
Yes.
All right, perfect. So this is a little bit our platform. We have a couple of tabs on the top you can see. So the welcome page is basically purposed to welcome them and to have the overview, like what you just saw, the program flow. And we ask them a first question on how confident do you currently, right, feel leading your team? And that allows us already, because you can see round one, that allows us already at the end to see how much they feel more confident at the end of the program. So to start with that question and end with that question is already, I think, giving you an indication of how they experience the program. But indeed, for the rest, we add audio, we add the flow, and so on. And so that would be our first page. Then the modules, we have, as I said, 5 modules. And when people start the program, they will only see the first module, right? They won't see those 5. They are gradually added. So it also feels not like a mountain of information that you have to go through, but step by step, you're brought along. But the modules are built in very same way so that you have that familiarity of having a video, having reflection questions, quiz questions, that type of thing is coming back in each of our modules. And then we have,
Would you mind jumping, for example, into the executive strategy page? And just to show, because there, as you said, that there is some content in TikTok format, some PDFs, some like audio, but then you are also using like some of those pulses.
Yeah, correct. So this is in a pause setting, and I think I'm already on the 2nd page or 4th. I'll just go back to the beginning. And people will always be taken where they left it. So that's nice. So this was our first page. We first wanted to make sure that they have some visibility on the strategy, the big strategy, I would say, from the organization, because that's where it all starts from. And then we always take them back to where does this fit in the learning objectives that we in the beginning shared with you, right? What you're gonna take out, what you're gonna learn through the program. And then, for example, here we had a self-assessment. So how do you currently feel that you're executing on strategy? And there's 3 elements, right? And I mentioned that already. Our content always has these 3 big elements per module that they can focus on and that they can that we bring along in every element of the program. So here you start first with a self-assessment, and then we basically go into the meat, which is our video here, right? So the video takes around 19 minutes, and every module more or less takes around 35 minutes to complete. So they also know that in advance. And so, we add a podcast on specifically accountability. You can make also some of these elements mandatory so that they can't proceed if they haven't seen the video. So if the video for us is the most important thing, then we will make that a required portion of the program before they can continue. And then, of course, as I said, right, we always want to have this reflection moment. What is holding people back to be accountable? And what do you find most difficult? And then they start commenting, right? And so on. So, and then we use some of that in our workshops to say, okay, we talked about accountability. We're going to do an exercise on it, but let's remind ourselves, what does this group feel most challenging about accountability? And then you can, again, bring them back to theory, reflection. Now let's apply. What is it that you want to learn? What is it that you want to get better at? So I'm going to scroll a little bit quicker because
I just love to see, even if it's like quickly scrolling, but I love to see how you have actually been answering to these people, and they are like also getting the personal touch advices. And, that's really, really, really nice to see.
And then I think... And then we always tie them as well. If there's something coming back that we know we're going to see in the next module, we already link them, right? So that will be very important content for you because we will touch upon that in that module. So you get people excited. In this specific case, for this cohort, there were a lot of people that had as the lowest score on focus. And then we added like a book that could be interesting for them to still, deepen their knowledge on this. And then if you click on this, right, it takes you immediately to a 1-minute book review, so that they could see like, this sounds interesting for me. I would love to buy the book, or I can do an audio of the book. So all of that type of thing. So, and then as you see, we've got these quiz questions that people can respond to, and so on. And so when they're done, they will see it in this mode, like everything in one page. So they have a very easy overview. So that's already, I think, in terms of the modules, right? This is what you will see coming back in each of the modules. If you then go into the virtual sessions, so these were all sessions that we've done with the group. Maybe specifically, I think, on networking. So now, of course, it is not in my facilitation mode, but I can't put that in facilitation mode, and then people will only see what I'm showing them, and I gradually take them along. So that really works well. We always start a little bit with an icebreaker, so people could pin themselves, right? These little dots are where people were when they entered the workshop. And then we explained again, like, what are we going to do in the next 30 minutes? What are the goals? And we tried to keep the workshops not too long. 30 minutes is easy to squeeze in people's time. And actually, one of the takeaways was that people want even longer sessions. So that was for us a little bit of a, hey, this is nice, they want more. So probably we're going to make those smaller ones 45 minutes. And then we started with, okay, who's in this cohort? So get to know the people, that are in this program together with you. So they went into small breakout rooms for 5 minutes. And then so this specific portion was around networking. And we basically brought them along with 2 different versions. So one, networking, you can do that because of the role that you're in, and you want to learn more about other people's roles. So we made this fun thing around, from fabric to fashion, the whole chain in our organization, and where do you play a role? And then we asked them to reach out to one person via the chat in this workshop that you want to know more about their job about, right? So that's one way you can network, to understand what people do. The other way is because you feel you have a common interest. And we've done this, when they first started the program, they got like one question and they needed to select which things were interesting for them. And based on that, we matched them. So here, of course, because we are the ones that you can see and the others are not, they are confidential at the moment, you could actually see all the people that you had the highest connection with based on the interest that you selected. And then again, right, we asked them, reach out to the person that is on your top, and then reach out to the person that is on your bottom to see, like, what can you learn from someone else's interests? And then we gave them some tips, like, if networking is hard for you, we hear you. Here are, again, some other resources that you could take into account to try when you go along, right?
Melanie, I can already see that this would also, the content would be really beneficial for many of us. So it's also really, really interesting to start looking deeper that what are all the things that you are having there. There are a few questions now, and also appreciating everyone's time. I think that we are coming to kind of to the closing part, but Agneta asked, do the participants have access to all of the participants' comments in Kontoor, or only their own team or division or country?
Yeah, good question. They have visibility to all the comments. Yeah.
Yes. And how do you handle new leaders? Do you start the learning path 2 or 3 times per year, or when you have a certain number of participants?
Yeah. So this program we do on a yearly basis for all the newly hired frontline leaders and the newly promoted frontline leaders. So we have always around 70 to 100 on an annual base. So of course, across the world. We now actually have received the request of a lot of the leaders. Can we give like this course again to some of the leaders that are already like 4 years in the company or longer, that maybe, you know, they still needed to go through the webinars, right? Back in the day when we used our LMS, and they actually want the people to get a refresh. So we're probably looking now at how do we accommodate that request, because it's we already have now around 25 people that managers that actually want to get their employee back on this course, but then in this setup. So probably we are going to do it on 2 times a year. But yeah, to be defined within our. But I think that's an answer to the question already.
Yeah. Really good. Thank you, Melanie. And to be honest, there are many questions still on the workspace. And as said, we can be there and answer asynchronously also after this session. And I think that there were a few topics that really gained a lot of questions and interest. How did you create the psychological safety? These people really have the braveness to answer on questions and to really start building the community and learning together and reflecting together. And the other one being, how can you actually keep up the community and keep up the networking atmosphere? So I think that if you just have that in mind, or those glances on when you are then jumping into the workspace, that would be really helpful for the participants. So thank you so much for Melanie, for you, but also for all of the participants and for all of the questions and comments and being active on the workspace. This was a lot of fun, and at least I got that promised inspiration and a lot of new insights for further. We will now also add one more like activation in the workspace. So we would really appreciate with Melanie if you could drop us a comment. How was this session? And also leave one note. What is the thing that you are actually taking from this session to start using it in your own work, or just you promised to remember getting back to one thought. So please share with us the one learning that you got in this morning session. There were also, Melanie, some requests that would you share the experience of the participants? So we could also promise that we also add our PDF slides there, and we also add a few like comments or feedback notes from your participants. How did they actually feel the program? So you can now also find those slides there in the bottom of the page. Thank you, everyone. We would really appreciate you still writing some notes for us and sharing your thoughts here in Share Your Key Takeaway. And also you can see others' comments after you have added yours. And when we start getting these answers on the page, we need to start closing down, Melanie. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much for sharing your story and being so open with your ideas, your thoughts, the background, and the actual values you have gotten. So that was really, really inspiring moment and an hour for me and for our team especially. Thank you for Siri and Jade for being there in the background and for making this happen and being so, like really smooth and easy for me and Melanie. And thank you for the active participation. I hope the discussions continue in the workspace also after this. Thank you and enjoy your rest of the day.
Bye.